Hello and welcome back to Tearaway Unfolded, and today we'll be exploring the desert, which is going to be quite a significant level for a few reasons. First of all, it's a lot more primal than the previous levels, so it's a lot more kind of untamed. I find that quite interesting. We'll see more of that as we go into it. But also, this one's actually a level that caused me a lot of problems when I first played the game, because I got kind of stuck at this bit coming up to the left here, because I didn't quite understand how to make what needed to happen, because it's a little bit tricky. So we do need this guy. So let's climb this series of rocks, shall we? I quite like that little hidden drum as well. That's quite fun, the way they use the platform to kind of disguise the drum, but also turn it into a little elevator. It's a cute little way of playing with the drums. So here's the actual way up onto that platform. So this part's quite tricky because of what the guy asks you to do and how you need to actually do it. So what you need to actually do here is talk to this person, or bookmark, whatever it ends up being. And they are supposed to look like that. That's not a glitch, that's just how they look. Again, this level's very primal, so a lot of things kind of, yeah, this is what's tricky about it, is getting the rodents to trigger, because at one point when I first did this, I tried to get the rodent to him, but for some reason it just kind of wouldn't work what I was trying to do, even though I knew what I was trying to do and I couldn't work out why. But it's actually a lot simpler than you think, but here I also accidentally messed it up a little bit. I accidentally took his rodent away. I don't need to put it back, but I will, because I feel kind of bad about that now. You may notice there's a lot of glitchy little bookmarks all over the place as well. Again, not a glitch, it's actually supposed to look like that. Because the whole idea is these bookmark creatures are kind of beyond the story. That's also a major thing with why they're the only thing that's completely white as well, and glowy, because normally everything else is completely white. Is something you need to colour in, but these don't even have a colour. They're just kind of there. This is just what they're like. And of course we've unlocked a pig, so now we have a bit of a faster way of travelling the desert. And you may notice over here we have what looks like an exit. Oh yeah, it's just another pig. But it's currently blocked off, so we need to figure out a way to open that. So this is a much easier side to the desert, one I didn't really have the same problem with. Oops, sorry about your house of cards, sir. So this is easier to climb, but also has a little bit of a trick to it as well. Trick being, of course, not to fall there. But also to remember to pick something up that I didn't pick up. That's going to make this climb a lot easier. You may notice a breakable thing there. Yeah, we need to bring a rock. That's the trick. So we can break through that, because of course there's a drum skin beneath that rock. So there's our rock. Well, beneath that paper layer, I guess. That's the usual thing. There we are. Now we can get all the way up and see what this person wants. This bookmark creature. Just wants a new picture. Let's draw a nice one, shall we? He wants a cave painting. Let's go a little bit dinosaur-y, shall we? Quite like the way that looks. A little bit Lyle Crocodile. But now we've actually opened that, so it's time to actually progress in the desert now. Yeah, this took me hours my first playthrough, because again, I had trouble with that situation with the gopher. Because I just couldn't work out what it wanted when it came to a talkative partner. I just couldn't work that part out. But let's leave these bookmarks behind, shall we? And see what's beyond them in the desert. I quite like the whole idea as well of the main denizens here being bookmarks, because it kind of says a lot about, like, the nature of a story itself. Like, they are something that can basically pause the story, potentially, if they ever were in use. So they essentially have kind of control of a story that the other characters don't have. And this is quite an interesting little piggy section as well, because it's a lot trickier than the first time we had to do this. It's an evolution of the thing, because now we have to pick paths. And there's a lot of bottomless pits in the area as well, so you have to be quite careful how we use these drumskins. Even though some diagonal ones, which are quite fun. I like this little section. It's a fun little way of playing with the piggy one last time. And of course here we have to also combine it with the wind as well, because this game is still having us combine mechanics, so it's not going to keep things simple for us. We're near the end of it now. That would be boring. I like that little thing we have to turn back a little bit as well. And here you have to be careful of timing as well, because if you do the thing at the wrong time, you can accidentally undo a bridge you're currently on, so you kind of have to be careful there. Now you have quite a little drum box you have to bounce as well. That's a fun little thing to play with. I also like these little unravelling paths as well. Yep, that's all we can do with the pig now, because the pig has its own story to tell, and we aren't part of it. I quite like how it's kind of playing with the whole idea of stories as well. Like, that pig has his own thing going on, and we are, while we are the main character of our story, we aren't the main character of that pig story. I mean, it has a wife after all. They may have a family now, we don't know. So this is quite a fun little way of playing with the previous mechanic as well. The fact that everything's made of paper, but also the fact that the water's made of paper. We already did this once before, so it's time to mow this again. I quite like how the waterfall's kind of like a large curtain as well that you have to kind of pull back. It's a fun aesthetic combination of things. It's kind of a cute way of showing rapids as well, having the waterfall kind of be flapping around like that. And this part's quite tricky to figure out how to progress forward, because you might think this is obvious enough that this would be the way forward, because it's also a combination of things. But I believe this is actually just a way to a collectible, because of course, like, and it's also really hard to climb on because you have to kind of like see behind the waterfall, and that's quite difficult to do. That's what you always hate doing, is when like the analog stick in a game is kind of like context sensitive and you can't see what you're doing. I always find that kind of control a little bit annoying. And yeah, if the paper here, someone just touches you, you get counted as drowned. Even if it's the vertical part of the waterfall, because of course you just get swept off by the water. That's what's happening in the fiction of the world. So let's go in a different direction, shall we? So here's the actual way forward. And something I quite like here as well is that it's a bit less straightforward when it comes to the way the paths are laid out. Like, they're a lot windier, and it kind of feels a lot more like it's less man-made. Like, the paths are just kind of going wherever they want to go, because this is just the way the world wants to do its thing. This is a world that you're no longer in control of. This desert is something primordial, something that's you're not in control over. You're just working with it to progress. Which works quite well with this type of, the final type of story being a much more meta-commentary type of story. But of course that means some of these paths aren't even real paths at all. It's kind of like a weird little semi-maze labyrinth thing. Because some of these paths, as you'll see here, they just loop back around. There is a bit of a clue though on how to progress, because of course there's one character that always needs to be taken to a progression location before it's satisfied. A character we've always been ignoring this entire game. The misplaced gopher. Here's her house. So let's move on, shall we? An interesting giant dead fish as well.
Ah! À toi! Oh, and you're you! Hello, you! Do you like my new look? Embracing new ideas. You can't... À toi! Don't worry if things get a bit weird. Just go with it. You've stuck together through thick and thin, so keep going. This is your story. You are the messenger, toi. Don't end up unread. Who will you inspire then? Who will you inspire then?
I quite like that the green man here has had to take a leaf out of the Scraps book and burrow through the land himself to get there, because he's not supposed to be there. It's a fun little way of showing that the narrators are evolving too. And of course we have a flappy piece of paper. We know what that means. Yep, time for a much longer bit of airplane time. This part's much harder as well. Because this time, unlike previously where we could just kind of go wherever, this time we have a very specific path we need to follow. And as you can see, it's starting to get narrower. And now we're having to start worrying about how high up we are as well. It's quite a standard kind of section in most action games, but I feel it's done quite well here. And the fact that it adds a little extra context to this particular mechanic also helps. Especially the fact that here we have to notice this little cave down here to go through. And of course this area is going to start getting harder and harder as more and more obstacles appear. I like the twin waterfalls as well. It feels very kind of far playing from Final Fantasy X in a lot of ways. Because you have to be careful not to get hit by these falling pillars. We kind of got crushed on the way through there, so let's try that part again, shall we? And again. And this, I believe, should be the final time. Or not. Yeah, I'm not very good at these sections at all. I find these quite tricky sometimes, especially because they require a lot more kind of fine control, and you kind of have to, I always find that kind of thing quite difficult with these sections in general. But here we go, time to go through the trippy tunnel finally, and see what becomes of us in here. I also quite like as well, as we mentioned earlier, we're not flying up towards the tear. This time we're going straight towards it. We're on an equal footing with it.
À toi. There is another messenger, lost in a forgotten place. Won't you help them finish their story before you finish yours?
Yep, now Artois is inside the controller. So how can we see what they're doing? Camera's outside of it. For now. Yeah, so the fourth wall is now completely obliterated because now we're inside the controller. So join us next time as we explore inside the controller in this weird little version of reality. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, check my Patreon out, and also share my vids as well. The Patreon will appear in the description, and goodbye.